Hey, what's up, guys? I got a really sexy treat for you today. It's gonna be showing off an old production Marlin 795. So that's about 15 years old. And then I'm also gonna be showing you how to diagnose accuracy issues. Number one, how do you know if you have accuracy issues? Well, if you've been shooting your gun for a while and it's been grouping good and now it's grouping poorly, something's wrong. And so let's dive into it. Let me set you up in the tripod here. But first, let me just show you this. They don't make these anymore. This is a Marlin 795. Has a couple advantages over the Ruger 1022. The has dual extractors, somewhat of a free floated barrel, and it runs like a champ. I don't know, forgot the third, but the four things that you're really going to look for when your gun is shooting poorly is, number one, let me put you in the tripod, sorry for the shaking. Number one, is your scope tight? Is everything tight? Number two, are your action screws tight? You're going to want your front lug tight, really tight, and this one a little tight. And then number three, you're going to start to want to clean your barrel. And number four, did anything break or is anything bad? This had all of them. So when I went and I looked at my barrel, I had lead crusties on the front of the muzzle and lead and carbon and junk just caked up inside the action. My scope, if you look at it, it's a little canted to the right, and so that could mean that this objective, where the crosshairs are etched in, could have come loose from the glue or the clamps that hold it in. And then number four is if anything is broken. And if you look here, the scope could be broken, but the receiver is getting marred up by the charging handle here. So most likely, it's probably not going to affect the accuracy, but this plastic buffer, just like in an AR-15, when it bottoms out, it hits something here in the back, and that plastic buffer could be worn out. So it's $15 on Midwest Gunworks, so I have some coming in. I've already taken this apart a little bit to help, so let's dive into it. But first, let me just show you this. This is a cheap Simmons scope, 3-9 by 32. Rated for 22 Magnum, and so I haven't shot this on anything else, but it is old branch rifle that I use quite a bit. So number one, you're going to want to make sure everything's unloaded. Just take your mag out, rack the action, and look down the bore here. Make sure there's nothing in the chamber. So the gun's safe. I'm going to go ahead and remove these two action screws here. I would pull the trigger, but it does have a magazine disconnect. It's the third step on making sure it's safe, in a safe direction. So after you remove these two action screws here, the long one goes in the front and the short one here goes in the rear. You're gonna want to take off the trigger guard here. You're gonna have to wiggle it off of this. So that's another thing that I forgot to mention. It has a last round bolt hold open and a bolt catch and release on it. So you can lock the bolt and clean it. You can also lock the bolt and put your mag in and then drop it. So it's something that the Ruger 1022 doesn't have. So again, wiggle it off of the bolt catch and the mag catch here. This is polymer, a little downside, but it is what it is. And then you're free to wiggle the whole action and barreled action out of the stock. The stock does not have any metal in it or any pillaring or glass bedding or anything like that. It does come with sling studs here that you can put bipod or sling on. Set that to the side. And so when I was talking about the accuracy, check out this accuracy. This is at 50 yards off of a tripod with CCI standard velocity. I like the CCIs and the Aguilas. They're both super extra. They're both grouping really poorly. Even at 50 yards, this is printing. If we were to measure this here, my point of aim is right there, and then I have 3 shots here, three shot group. 1, 2, sorry it's ripped, 3. If you were to measure that, that's about a 3.5 or 7-inch group at 100. So that's not what it should be doing. It used to group about half of that or less. So to continue taking it down, you're going to pop this pin out here in the rear, and it hinges off of that front one, and the whole rest of the trigger pack comes out. So when I talked about this buffer, this is what the bolt, when it cycles back, it hits this at the bottom of its travel. You can notice it's really old. This is 15 years old. Thousands of rounds. So $15 off of Midwest Gunworks. Not too bad. Again, this to continue taking it down, if you notice here in the rear, there's the recoil spring. Gonna grab it by the tail end right here where the plunger is with some needle nose pliers. Pull that out. Carefully not to bend everything. And the bolt will fall out. And the the charging handle out the side. Put you guys back over here. So now that we have the gun disassembled, I want to show you the manufacturing date here. Printed in the bottom there. Can you see that? It says 10. So this is made in about 2010. The older models are called 60, Marlin Model 60, Marlin Model 70. They use pretty much the same action, minus some smaller dimensions in certain places. Like that recoil plug is a little smaller on this version versus the older models. And the serial code. So to clean this out, I like to use some bore scrubber for the action and to spray all the action out. And then for the barrel, when it gets that heavily leaded, this is a micro groove barrel. Let me see if I could find it here. Micro groove barrel, which means it has really shallow grooves in it. I've already cleaned this a little bit, but what happens is there's some pitting and rust here. This is again a ranch gun. What happens is that just gets packed with lead and it turns into a smooth bore, and that's why it patterns like a shotgun. And so again, the steps that you're going to want to take is, number 1, did your scope come loose? Number 2, the action screws, those were loose too, so we'll have to see. Number 3, clean it. You got to clean it a ton. This one I'm going to have to use the bore scrubber, drill, and a bronze brush here. And then number 4, did anything break? So I hope this helped you guys on diagnosing, any accuracy issues. I'll get back to you guys on how it's printing after I clean it all. And if it's bad scope, then I'm gonna have to replace the scope. Again, if you look down the scope, the last little thing, see if I can get this in focus. Probably not, but let me try real here. So the scope, it looks pretty straight. Sorry it's out of focus. But then if you look here, look at the gap on the back side where my finger's wiggling. It's bigger on that left side of the action versus the right side. So the scope is canted down. So that's not good, but if I remember, it has always been bad. And before I replace anything, let's start with the first three. And if you did have a bad scope, this lens might adjust a little bit and you'll get an out of focus crosshair. And this isn't out of focus even though it looks like it is. So take care, guys, and stay blessed.